The cold air around the royal gate felt clean and quiet. Tourists moved slowly along the wide walkway, holding phones and cups of tea. A line of royal guards stood still near the tall iron fence. Their uniforms looked sharp in the morning light. Their faces stayed calm like stone. Even the busy city sounds seemed softer near them. An older man named Tom walked toward the fence at an easy pace. He was not dressed in a fancy way. He wore a dark jacket, simple shoes, and a plain cap. A small service badge sat on his chest, polished but old. The badge did not shine like a new coin. It shined like something that had been cared for many times. Tom's hands were steady as he held his cap for a moment. He looked at the guards with respect, not with excitement. He did not come to take pictures. He came because the place meant something to him. Tom stopped a few steps back from the fence. He stood straight, even though his shoulders carried years of work. His eyes moved across the guards, one by one. His face showed calm, and also a hidden weight. He remembered long nights, loud storms, and long roads. He remembered friends who did not come home. He remembered being young and strong, and also being afraid sometimes. Now he was older, but his inside strength still lived in him. A small group of school kids passed by, talking in excited voices. They pointed at the guards, then at the big building behind them. A teacher guided them forward with a gentle hand. A few tourists stood near the fence, trying to get the best angle for photos. Some people laughed softly. Some people whispered. Most people did not notice Tom at first. He liked it that way. He never enjoyed being the center of a crowd. Across the walkway, a young man named Rick leaned against a stone post. He wore a bright hoodie and clean sneakers. His hair was styled carefully, and his smile looked loud. Two friends stood beside him, watching the crowd. Rick's voice carried farther than it should. He joked about people walking by. He acted like the whole place was his stage. His friends laughed, even when the jokes were not funny. Rick's eyes landed on Tom and stayed there. He noticed Tom's badge and the careful way Tom stood. He noticed the calm respect in Tom's face. That calm made Rick feel small inside, even if he did not admit it. Rick wanted attention, and he wanted it fast. He wanted the crowd to look at him, not at anyone else. He stepped away from the post and started walking toward Tom. His friends followed a few steps behind. At first, Rick only spoke loud words from a short distance. He made jokes about Tom's slow steps and old clothes. Some nearby people turned their heads. A woman frowned and looked away. A man with a camera lowered it, unsure what was happening. Tom heard the words clearly. He did not react. He kept his eyes forward and his breathing steady. He had heard worse words in harder places. He knew that anger could grow fast if he fed it. Rick moved closer, still talking. He talked about the badge like it was a costume. He talked like respect was a silly thing. His friends laughed again, trying to sound confident. One friend looked uneasy and glanced at the guards. The guards remained still, but their eyes were not empty. They were watching. They were aware. They were trained for moments like this. Tom shifted his weight slightly, not as a sign of fear, but as a natural move. He glanced to his side, then back toward Rick. His face stayed calm. His mouth stayed relaxed. He did not show a smile, but he also did not show anger. Rick took that calm as a challenge. He stepped into Tom's space like he owned it. He spoke louder, hoping Tom would snap. A few people in the crowd started to back away. They did not want trouble near the royal gate. A tourist couple stopped filming and stepped aside. A young man in a coat looked ready to say something, then stayed silent. A soft tension spread through the air. The kind of tension that makes people hold their breath without knowing why. Tom finally spoke, and his voice was low and even. He told Rick to step back and show respect. He did not insult Rick. He did not threaten Rick. He spoke like a man who had learned control the hard way. The simple calm in Tom's words made Rick pause for a heartbeat. Then Rick's face tightened, like he hated that calm. He hated not being able to control the moment. Rick's friends grew quieter. One of them whispered that Rick should stop. Rick did not listen. He lifted his hand and pointed at Tom's badge. He spoke about it like it was nothing. Tom did not move his feet. He did not step back. His eyes stayed on Rick's face. Tom's eyes were not cold. They were steady. They carried a warning without needing loud words. The guards remained still, but the crowd could feel them more now. It was like the ground itself was paying attention. A child near the fence stopped talking and held his mother's hand. The mother pulled the child a little farther away. A man in a suit took out his phone, not to film, but to be ready to call for help. Rick did not notice the small shifts around him. He only cared about winning the moment. Tom took a slow breath and lowered his cap into his hands again. He chose calm again. He chose control again. He did not come here to fight anyone. He came here to remember a different kind of duty. He looked past Rick for a second, toward the guards. His eyes softened with respect. He looked back at Rick and stayed quiet. Rick took that quiet as weakness. He stepped even closer, too close. His voice rose again. He spoke like he wanted Tom to feel small. Tom's shoulders stayed relaxed. His hands stayed down. He did not touch Rick. He did not raise his own voice. He stood like a tree in steady wind. The crowd around them became fully silent now. No one laughed. No one smiled. Even Rick's friends stopped making noise. Only the distant sound of traffic could be heard. The stillness of the royal guards felt heavier than before. A guard's eyes locked onto the space between Tom and Rick. The guard did not move yet, but the message was clear. Rick's arm shifted slightly, as if he was about to do something reckless. Tom saw the movement early. He did not flinch. He did not step away. He simply stayed ready in a calm way. Tom's calm was not softness. It was discipline. It was practice. It was the kind of strength that does not need to prove itself to strangers. A breath passed through the crowd like a wave. The moment felt like it was standing on a thin edge. Rick's face showed pride and anger mixed together. Tom's face showed patience and quiet power. The guards stood like statues, but their attention was sharp as a blade. And right there, near the fence and the royal gate, the day prepared to change. The tension near the royal gate grew heavier with every quiet second. Rick stood too close to Tom, his breath fast and uneven. Tom stayed still, his feet planted like they belonged there. The crowd around them seemed frozen in place. No one wanted to move first. Everyone felt that something important was about to happen. Rick's arm lifted higher, not fast but careless. It was not a strong move, but it was a disrespectful one. Tom noticed the change immediately. He had learned long ago how to read small signs. He did not react with fear. He reacted with awareness. His body remained calm, but his mind stayed sharp. Before Rick could move any closer, a firm sound broke the silence. The sound of boots stepping forward echoed across the stone ground. One royal guard moved out of the line with perfect control. His posture was tall and balanced. His face showed calm authority. He placed himself between Tom and Rick without rushing. The space between them changed instantly. The guard raised one hand in a clear signal. He told Rick to stop and step back. His voice was not loud, but it carried power. It was the kind of voice that did not need to repeat itself. Rick froze for a second, surprised by the sudden barrier. His raised arm lowered slowly. His confidence slipped like sand through his fingers. Another guard stepped forward and stood beside the first one. Together, they formed a wall of calm strength. Their presence alone changed the air. The crowd felt safer in that moment. People relaxed their shoulders without realizing it. Some let out slow breaths they did not know they were holding. Rick tried to speak, but his words came out weak. He attempted to laugh, but the sound felt empty. The first guard looked directly at him. He reminded Rick where he was and what respect meant. He spoke clearly and simply. There was no anger in his tone. There was only order. Tom took a small step back, not because he was afraid, but to give space. He did not want to stand in the way of authority. He lowered his head slightly in respect toward the guards. The guards noticed this gesture. Their eyes softened for a brief moment. They understood what kind of man stood behind them. Rick's friends shifted behind him. One of them touched Rick's arm and whispered that it was time to leave. Rick looked around and realized the crowd was no longer on his side. No one laughed with him now. No one encouraged him. He felt alone in a place full of people. The guard asked Rick again to step back. This time Rick obeyed. He took one step back, then another. His shoulders dropped as his pride faded. The moment he tried to control had turned against him. He avoided eye contact now. The guard then turned slightly toward Tom. He asked if Tom was all right. Tom nodded calmly. He thanked the guard with a quiet voice. There was no drama in his response. There was no need for it. The crowd slowly began to move again. Some people whispered about what they had seen. Some nodded with approval. A few looked at Tom with new respect. They saw not just an older man, but a strong one. Rick stood awkwardly near the stone post where he started. His friends urged him again to leave. This time he listened. He turned and walked away, his steps quick and uneven. He did not look back. The moment he had wanted to own now followed him like a shadow. The guards returned to their positions with perfect timing. It was as if nothing had happened. But everyone knew something had changed. The calm near the royal gate felt deeper than before. The silence now felt respectful instead of tense. Tom stayed where he was for a moment. He adjusted his cap and looked once more at the guards. His eyes carried gratitude and understanding. He did not need words to express it. The guards gave him a small nod in return. A young man from the crowd approached Tom carefully. He said he admired how Tom stayed calm. Tom smiled gently and thanked him. He said that calm was learned over time. He said anger often caused more harm than good. The young man nodded and stepped away, thoughtful. The lesson passed quietly from one person to another. No shouting was needed. No scene was made. Tom took a deep breath and let it out slowly. His heart beat steady in his chest. The moment had tested him, but it had not broken him. He felt proud, not of himself, but of what respect still meant in the world. The royal gate stood tall behind him. The guards stood strong and still. The crowd continued to move on. And Tom remained exactly who he had always been. The space near the royal gate slowly returned to normal movement. People began walking again, though many kept looking back at Tom. The air felt lighter, but the moment stayed in their thoughts. Tom remained standing near the fence, quiet and steady. He felt no need to rush away. His heart was calm, even after what had happened. Tom looked at the guards again, standing tall and silent. Their discipline reminded him of earlier days in his life. He remembered standing in long lines under open skies. He remembered following orders without complaint. Those memories felt far away, yet close at the same time. They lived inside him like old songs. A gentle breeze passed through the open space. It touched Tom's jacket and moved the edge of his cap. He held the cap firmly and took a slow breath. He felt thankful that the situation had ended peacefully. He knew not every moment ended that way. Nearby, a woman whispered to her friend about what she had seen. She spoke about the guards stepping forward with calm strength. Her friend nodded and said respect still mattered. They walked away quietly, carrying the lesson with them. A young boy stood with his father near the fence. The boy kept looking at Tom with curiosity. He asked his father who Tom was. The father said Tom was someone who had served his country. The boy's eyes widened with interest. He looked at Tom like he was seeing a hero from a story. Tom noticed the boy's gaze and smiled softly. He gave a small nod to the child. The boy smiled back, proud and excited. That small moment warmed Tom's heart more than applause ever could. The guards stayed alert, though the danger had passed. Their training did not allow them to relax fully. They watched the crowd with calm focus. Each movement was measured and purposeful. Their presence reminded everyone that order still stood strong. Rick was gone now, lost in the moving streets beyond the gate. His laughter and noise had disappeared completely. What remained was quiet understanding. The crowd had seen the result of disrespect. No harsh lesson was needed beyond that. Tom shifted his weight slightly and rested his hands by his sides. His body felt tired, but his spirit felt clear. He thought about how many times he had faced pressure before. This moment was small compared to others he remembered. Still, it mattered. A man with a camera approached Tom slowly. He asked if he could take a photo. Tom shook his head politely. He said the moment was not for pictures. The man understood and stepped back with respect. Tom appreciated that response more than praise. Respect was shown best through listening. He believed that deeply. A guard glanced toward Tom again. Their eyes met briefly. There was no need for words. Both understood duty and discipline. Both understood quiet strength. Tom decided it was time to move on. He placed his cap back on his head carefully. He took one slow step forward. Then another. Each step felt steady and sure. As Tom walked, people made space for him naturally. No one blocked his path. Some nodded in respect. Some simply watched. The path opened without effort. Tom walked past the fence and toward the wide street. The sounds of the city grew louder again. Cars moved in the distance. Voices blended together. Life continued as it always did. Still, Tom carried the moment with him. He knew the memory would stay. Not as anger. Not as pride. But as quiet proof that values still lived. A street musician played a soft tune nearby. The sound followed Tom for a short distance. It felt peaceful and familiar. Tom slowed his steps slightly to listen. Music had always helped him think. He remembered nights when silence was heavy. He remembered moments when hope felt far away. Those memories had shaped him. They had taught him patience. They had taught him control. Today, that control had guided him again. He was proud of that. Not loudly proud. Quietly proud. Behind him, the guards continued their watch. Their line remained unbroken. Tourists returned to taking photos. Children pointed at uniforms again. The Royal Gate returned to being a landmark. Yet something unseen had changed. The people who witnessed the moment would remember it. They would remember calm standing against disrespect. They would remember authority used wisely. Tom reached the corner of the street and paused. He looked back once more toward the gate. He lifted his hand slightly in a respectful gesture. No one noticed except one guard. The guard gave a short nod in return. Tom turned away and continued walking. His pace remained slow but confident. He blended into the crowd like any other man. That was how he preferred it. He did not need recognition. He did not need praise. He only needed to know he had acted with honor. As he moved farther away, the noise of the city surrounded him fully. The Royal Gate disappeared behind buildings and streets. But the values it represented stayed with him. Tom walked on, carrying his past with dignity and his present with calm strength. The world continued moving around him. And the lesson of that day lived quietly in many hearts. The afternoon light softened as Tom continued down the long street. The city moved around him with its usual rhythm. People hurried to places he did not need to go. He walked at his own pace without concern. His mind felt clear after the moment near the Royal Gate. Tom passed small shops and quiet cafes. The smell of warm bread floated through the air. It reminded him of mornings from long ago. Simple things often brought the strongest memories. He smiled slightly as he walked. A bus stopped nearby and people stepped off in a rush. A young woman nearly bumped into Tom and stopped quickly. She apologized with a nervous smile. Tom waved his hand gently and told her it was fine. She thanked him and walked away lighter than before. Tom reached a small park not far from the street. He decided to rest for a while. He sat on a wooden bench beneath a tall tree. Leaves moved softly above him in the breeze. The quiet helped him think. He removed his cap and placed it beside him. His eyes closed for a short moment. He thought about the guard who stepped forward earlier. He thought about discipline and respect. Those values had shaped his whole life. Tom remembered his early days of service. He remembered learning to stay calm under pressure. He remembered being taught that strength was not about noise. It was about control and responsibility. Those lessons had stayed with him. A man walking his dog passed by the bench. The dog stopped and wagged its tail at Tom. Tom laughed softly and reached out his hand. The dog leaned in happily. The man smiled and said hello. They spoke briefly about the weather and the park. Nothing important was said. Yet the moment felt warm and human. Tom appreciated simple kindness more than big words. After a while, Tom stood up again. He placed his cap back on his head. He felt rested and ready to continue. He left the park slowly and returned to the street. As he walked, he noticed a small group gathered near a newsstand. A headline spoke about respect and public behavior. Some people discussed the meaning of it. Tom did not stop to listen. He already knew the answer inside his heart. He continued walking toward the train station. He planned to return home before evening. The station was busy but orderly. People waited in lines with quiet patience. Tom stood near the platform and watched trains arrive and leave. The sound of movement reminded him of travel long ago. He had spent many years moving from place to place. Now he preferred stillness. A young soldier stood not far from him. The soldier looked nervous and unsure. Tom noticed the way the young man stood stiffly. It reminded him of himself years earlier. Tom walked closer and spoke kindly. He asked if it was the young man's first assignment. The soldier nodded and smiled with relief. They spoke for a short time. Tom shared simple advice about patience and listening. The soldier thanked Tom sincerely. His shoulders relaxed as confidence grew. That small exchange felt meaningful to Tom. Passing wisdom forward mattered to him. The train arrived with a loud sound. People stepped forward and boarded calmly. Tom found a seat by the window. He placed his hands on his knees and relaxed. As the train moved, the city passed by slowly. Buildings turned into open spaces. The noise faded into distance. Tom watched quietly with thoughtful eyes. He reflected on the moment near the royal gate again. Not with anger. Not with pride. With understanding. He knew the guard had done his duty. He knew he himself had done the same in his own way. That balance mattered. Tom believed respect worked best when shared quietly. He believed true strength never needed to shout. The world often forgot that lesson. But moments like that reminded people again. The train slowed as it reached his stop. Tom stood carefully and stepped onto the platform. The air felt cooler here. The area was quieter and familiar. He walked down the path toward his home. The sky began to change color as evening approached. Soft orange light touched the ground. It felt peaceful and complete. Tom reached his small house and unlocked the door. Inside, everything was simple and clean. He placed his cap on the table. He sat down and took a deep breath. He felt tired but content. The day had tested him. It had also rewarded him quietly. Tom prepared a warm meal and ate slowly. He listened to the sound of the evening outside. Birds settled for the night. The city rested too. As darkness fell, Tom stood near the window. He looked out and thought about the world beyond his home. He hoped respect would continue to grow. He hoped calm would guide future moments. He turned off the light and prepared for rest. His body relaxed as he lay down. His mind felt peaceful. That day would stay with him, not as a story of conflict, but as a story of dignity and quiet strength. And somewhere near the royal gate, Respect still stood watch.